Stanford University.
All right. Welcome everybody to the seminar on people, computers, and design. My name is Neil Patel. Terry is out this week, so I'm filling in for him. Next week, we're going to have Gail White, who is Gail Witt, sorry, a faculty member in the Art and Art History department here at Stanford. She's going to be talking about experimental media arts. So check that out if you can. This week, we have Meredith Morris from Microsoft Research. She is also an alum from the Stanford HCI group, so it's good to have her back. She is in the Adaptive Systems and Interaction group at MSR, and today she's going to be talking about collaborative web search.
Thanks. So am I turned on? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Do I sound microphone? Now I sound microphone. So good afternoon. As Neil said, I'm Meredith Morris, and today I'm going to talk about some research on the topic of collaborative web search. And I want to acknowledge that there are other people who've been helping me out in these research efforts, and they're pictured here. In particular, Salima Amershi, who's a graduate student at the University of Washington, contributed a lot to the work on CoSearch. And Matt Madden, Piali Chowdhury, and Eric Horvitz contributed to the work on SearchTogether. So today, web search is primarily thought of as a solitary activity. The typical tools that people use for searching the web are web browsers and search engine web pages. And both of these types of tools are really designed for a single person working alone. But that's not always the way that people need to search for information. In fact, there are lots of situations when people need to collaborate with groups when they're trying to find information. So for example, students often need to work together. They're often assigned group-based projects because there's educational pedagogy that suggests that working in groups is valuable. So for example, a group of elementary school kids might be assigned to do a report about Abraham Lincoln together as a group, and they'll want to work on that topic together. When you consider people's traditional information retrieval practices using paper materials and traditional libraries, there are lots of groups that actually work together. For example, studies of lawyers and of just typical office workers show that these groups often work together when they're using traditional paper resources to look up information. And so it would be wonderful to think about how we could translate these groups' existing work practices with traditional libraries into the digital media and the web and digital libraries of the future. So we wanted to learn a little bit more about people's current habits regarding collaboration and web search. So we did a survey of a couple hundred Microsoft employees to find out a little bit more just about their status quo practices. One of the things that I found really surprising was that 97% of the people in this survey reported engaging in some type of collaborative search activity. Now, they might not have called it that explicitly, but when you listened to their descriptions of what they were doing, they were clearly collaborating on web search. So for example, 30% of them described situations where they had used instant messaging. So they had a web browser open, and their partner somewhere else had a web browser open, and they also both had IM clients open, and they would use the instant messaging to coordinate back and forth while they were both searching the web on the same topic. Or 18% of them mentioned that they would actually get together in person with a group of friends or colleagues that had a shared information need, and they would meet in person and divide up the task among different people. So if, say, they were planning a vacation together, they would say, okay, you're going to search for hotels, and you're going to search for restaurants, and you're going to search for flights. Then they would go off and each do their separate portions of the searches, and then either get back together in person to share what they had found, or they would use email to share what they had found among the group. And if you want to read more about some of the things we learned from that survey, I encourage you to take a look at our Chi paper or ask me questions at the end of the talk. One of the other things that we learned from the survey was about the types of tasks that were the most common motivation for people trying to collaborate on web search. As I just mentioned, travel planning was actually one of the most common scenarios, both with friends and family and with business colleagues trying to arrange business travel together. Shopping was big, particularly for spouses who were shopping for expensive items like electronics, cars, and real estate, where both members of the couple really had a stake in the purchase and wanted to stay informed about the decision-making process. Social events were another big category. So groups of friends trying to decide what restaurant should they go to or what movie should they see, and wanting to look at things like reviews online together. This also included people who were planning big events like planning a bridal shower where several bridesmaids, for example, were all working together, wanted to be able to search together. Medical information was big among family members. So particularly if a member of the family was affected by an illness, many of their loved ones were all interested in working to learn more about the condition and learn more about treatment options, and they wanted to be able to share this information with the other members of the family. And then finally, people attempting to do work. So students working on homework together, colleagues working to prepare joint reports and presentations, and even parents helping their children to do a homework assignment had a need to search for online information together. Another thing that we learned from this survey was some of the obstacles that people face when trying to achieve these collaborative scenarios with current browsers and search tools. One problem is the desire to parallelize your efforts without unnecessary duplication of work. So for example, one of our survey respondents told a story. He said, my colleague and I were trying to do a literature search, and we both had different strategies for how they wanted to do the search and traverse the space of information. So it was difficult for them to do the search together on one computer because they each wanted to sort of follow different paths. But then when they tried to do the search separately on their own computers, they weren't sure how much redundant information they were finding. Another obstacle is sharing the context of your search with remote collaborators. So one person had an anecdote which might sound familiar to you. He and his partner were in separate houses, and they were both trying to search for a hotel online to plan a trip. So he was talking on the phone while they both had web browsers open, and he would say, go to Google, type in X, now click the third result, now see this link, click on that. And as any of you who've tried to experience that type of conversation know, it's definitely not the most optimal way to get things done. Another problem is remembering to record information about what you're doing during your search or what you're finding during your search in order to share it with other people. So one person related an anecdote about a time when he did a web search, and then he didn't realize until towards the end of the task that he actually wanted to share the process of what he did and what he found with someone else. And current mechanisms like browser history weren't really adequate to capture the richness of what he had just done. And finally, another obstacle to collaboration can be the differences in search skill among people who want to work together on web search. So for example, one person described trying to help his parents do a search on the web, and basically he found this so frustrating and impossible that he just did the search entirely for them and then just, gave them a final answer to their question. And really, this is a wasted opportunity in many ways. It's a wasted opportunity for his parents to perhaps have learned through working with him how to go about the process of finding information online, as well as perhaps a wasted social opportunity for him to participate in a meaningful connection with his parents by working together with them. So my colleagues and I have been thinking about how we can design software and user interfaces to begin to address people's needs to do collaborative web search. And today I'm going to talk about two different tools, SearchTogether and CoSearch, that we designed to address these needs. So first I'll talk to you a little bit about SearchTogether. SearchTogether is designed to support both synchronous and asynchronous collaboration among remote collaborators. So these are situations where everybody has their own computer and they're in their own location. And based on our background research and our survey, we felt it was especially important that SearchTogether support collaboration not only on sharing the products of what you found during the search, but but on sharing the process of searching itself, so that people can really understand how you found information. That might be important for understanding, say, the authenticity or the trustability of the information, as well as for learning perhaps new strategies or techniques for finding information based on what your collaborators are doing. We had 3 design goals in mind when we created SearchTogether. We wanted to support awareness among participants because, again, from our survey, this was really a pain point for users right now. We wanted to support division of labor among group members, again, because people were concerned about unnecessary redundancy when they are doing collaborative searches with current tools, and also because people were putting a lot of effort into division of labor. If you remember the results from the survey about people who would actually meet in person and specifically divide up who was responsible for what and then get back together. So we really wanted to help with that process. And finally, we support persistence of all the information related to a collaborative web search so that we can support asynchronous collaboration and so that people don't have to go through this process of remembering what it is that they need to share or remembering to capture something for their collaborators. Everything is always automatically captured for you. So I'm going to show you a video that demonstrates some of the features of SearchTogether, and then afterwards I'll go back through and explain the features in a little bit more detail. And this video is it's awesome. You can tell that it's super professional, starring very professional actors from Microsoft Research, so I hope you enjoy it.
In this video, we introduce SearchTogether, an application that enables remote users to collaborate when searching the web. Susan and her husband John live in New York. John's father, Frank, lives in California. Susan and John learn that Frank has recently been diagnosed with diabetes. They decide to use SearchTogether to help them communicate and share their findings about Frank's condition. Susan logs into SearchTogether and creates a new session on diabetes. She specifies that John and Frank will also be members of the session. Since Susan is the only group member currently online, she performs some standard searches about diabetes. Susan discovers a site about diabetes medication and recommends it to Frank, entering a comment that he asked his doctor about this particular medicine. When Frank logs in the next day, he can see from the query awareness information that Susan has already searched for information on type 2 diabetes and diabetes medications. Frank notices a web page thumbnail in his recommendations queue and clicks on it, which loads the medicine web page that Susan had recommended to him, along with her comment and rating. John also logs on and sends an instant message to his father. Frank replies to the message, asking his son to assist him in searching for diabetes-friendly recipes. John performs a split search for diabetes cooking tips. This causes half of the top results to appear in his own current results tab, and the other half to appear in a new tab in Frank's client. Frank can select this tab to view and investigate the results that John has sent him. John views several pages from his own results and gives thumbs up ratings to sites that contain useful recipes. Several months later, Frank's neighbor, Linda, is also diagnosed with diabetes. Linda mentions to Frank that she is having trouble preparing healthy meals that follow her doctor's guidelines. Frank adds Linda as a member of their SearchTogether session. Linda views the session summary to see a list of the best sites that Susan, John, and Frank found when they did their own investigation about diabetes.
Okay. So, again, I'm going to go back through the features that the video showed, and in particular, I want to talk about how the features were meant to support our 3 design goals of supporting awareness, division of labor, and persistence. So first, awareness. One of the tools we provide are these group query histories. And there are several motivations behind providing this. The first is to help prevent unnecessary redundant work. So from our surveys, we found people complaining that, they did a particular search, but someone else in the group had already done the same search and they didn't know. So this way you can see what other members of your group have already tried, so you don't waste time trying the same thing. Of course, these query histories are interactive, so you can just click on them to be taken to the page of results that your collaborators saw, if that's what you want to do. Another thing that the group query histories are meant to address is the difficulty of formulating query terms. This is especially difficult for non-technical users to come up with the right phrasing for their query. So we're hoping that by exposing them to, for example, the vocabulary that other people in their group use, that might help them think of new keywords or synonyms that they should try. Perhaps if they're collaborating with people of different skill levels, they might even see someone use advanced query syntax that they weren't familiar with. So this can be an opportunity to become more aware of different search strategies. Another feature we provide for awareness is what we call page-specific metadata. So in particular, we show visitation history. So these are the little thumbnails that you saw right in line with your search results, showing you a picture of your group members if they had already been to that particular site. And the idea is that this can be useful, for instance, to signal a page perhaps that you should look at, so a page that another group member has commented on or given a good rating to, or to prevent you from wasting time. So if you see that with the second result that one of your collaborators has already been to that page and says it's bad, you know perhaps not to even waste time clicking through on that result. And of course, when you visit a page itself, or if you just hover over the little comment bubbles in the search result list, you can view any comments that people in your group have associated with a particular page. To support division of labor, we have several features, one of which is the instant messaging that's integrated right into the application. So in our survey, people talked about how they used IM at the same time as their search application. They had to keep switching back and forth between them, which was quite distracting. So first, you don't have to switch. But now one of the other nice things is that this particular piece of chat is now associated with this particular web search. So it's stored and saved. So if other people in your group log into this particular search investigation later, they'll be able to see the chat that other people in the group had at the time they were searching. It can provide some added context to the search. We also provide recommendations. So this is a way for group members to sort of push a web page to a particular other member of the group that they think should be taking a look at it. And we provide some support for automatic division of labor. So in the video, you saw one of the users do a split search. So what this means is one person in the group types in the query terms, and then the top N, by default it's 50 search results, get divided up round robin style among all the group members. So they each have a non-overlapping subset of their results. And this could be useful for several reasons. One would be if you're trying to find something really quickly, so it's divide and conquer approach. It also helps ensure that people aren't doing redundantly the same thing that other people in the group are doing. And in addition, we envision that this could be useful for scenarios where people with different abilities want to work together. In particular, we imagine that the more skilled searchers might have the role of typing in the query terms, since this is something that's really hard for non-technical users to do. But then their collaborators can still participate in the search process by reviewing a portion of the results and perhaps eventually working their way up to doing their own queries. We also provide another division of labor feature that I didn't show in the video called multi-engine search. And this is where one member of the group types a query and it gets sent to several different sources, and each group member gets the results from one of the sources. So for example, if it were a medical query, it might get sent to a general search engine such as LiveSearch or Google, as well as specific search engines like the National Institute of Health or the PubMed database. And again, this is inspired by the way people told us that they're dividing up tasks in real life, where they'll often assign different members of the group to look at different sources, such as a particular journal or a particular library or a particular website. So we try and facilitate that automatically within our tool. And finally, we want to support persistence. And one of the ways SearchTogether does this is that all state associated with a search is automatically saved. You saw in the movie when the woman logged in, she has several different searches that are in her list of topics when she logs in. And she might be collaborating with a different set of people on each of these different search topics. And she can switch among them as she finds appropriate. But everything that's associated with that topic is saved automatically. So all the instant messaging that you did when you were logged into that particular topic, all the query terms you used, all the ratings and comments, which pages you visited, etc. And so that can support asynchronous collaboration. And it can support things like realizing later on that someone else might benefit from your information. So for example, if I did a lot of research when I was making my decision with my husband about what kind of car we wanted to buy, and a few months later my sister decides she also wants to buy a hybrid car, now she can benefit from the research that I've already done because I can add her on as a collaborator to my search since everything's been automatically preserved for me. Also, to support persistence, SearchTogether automatically generates the session summary. And there are several different options you can set for how the summary is generated, but by default it includes any page that any group member gave a positive rating to or offered a comment on. So really, in a sense, this summary is the product of the group's collaboration. It's a compilation of everything people in the group found important. You can tell who found what, who had thoughts on what, and of course it's an interactive way to quickly re-find all that material. And again, this can be exported and emailed to share with other people who perhaps don't have the tool as a way to collaborate even with people outside your immediate circle. So I'll talk briefly about some of our evaluation of SearchTogether. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I want to make sure I have time to show you CoSearch. So if I skip something important, feel free to ask me more questions about this afterwards. But basically, we wanted to find things out like, would people find this concept useful? How does it compare to their current strategies for collaborating on search? Do our 3 design goals, awareness, division of labor, and persistence, were those actually useful? And how can we further improve the tool? So for the initial evaluation, we had 7 pairs of people come in, and these were pairs of people who had existing social relationships. So they were couples or family members or people who participated in a shared hobby together outside of work. So we gave people a brief tutorial on how to use the tool, and then participants chose their own topic to search on. So they chose a topic that they were interested in together as a group. So they were realistic topics. So for example, 2 of the spouses both were redecorating their homes. So they were shopping for things like new furniture or what interior decorator they should hire. 4 pairs of people were planning joint vacations in the future, so they used this opportunity to do research for their vacations. And 1 pair of partners, they were training to run a marathon together, so they were searching for information about equipment they should get and local training routes they should use. So participants used SearchTogether to do their chosen task for 20 minutes, and of course all their interactions were logged as well as being observed, and then they independently completed questionnaires about the experience. Overall, people had positive reactions to the tool. In their questionnaires, they felt that SearchTogether helped them achieve their goal and that it was more effective than the traditional methods they used for web search. And they described their traditional ways they would go about the tasks that they did. And again, it was very similar to what was in our survey. So things like talking on the phone or IMing with each other while they each had a browser open, or one person looking over the shoulder and kind of being the backseat driver while somebody else typed into the search engine. In terms of awareness, this was by far the most important feature that the tool provided, awareness information in general. The query histories in particular were a really popular feature. In fact, 1/3 of all the search result sets that people viewed were actually viewed by clicking on items from these group query histories rather than by entering queries anew. And over half the time, people were clicking on items from their partner's history. So sometimes they were using it as a way to just revisit their own past queries, but they were actually very aware of what their partner's queries were and were using it as a way to check up on what their partner had found. People also really found the page-specific metadata useful. In particular, they liked the ability to rate something as being good. they didn't really use the negative rating. And I think this is kind of interesting because this is really a sort of new way to think about searching, right? The negative rating isn't really necessarily useful for you yourself. It's useful or as an altruistic thing for the group, right? To warn off other group members from something so they don't waste their time. And that's really different from the way that we search now. And so I'm sort of curious, as people get used to using a system like this, whether they would begin to use the negative rating more often as they start to think more about search as a group activity. People wanted even more awareness information than they currently had. So one of the things that was a common suggestion for how to improve the tool was to be able to have a way to glimpse at what your partner was looking at in their browser window right now. What's the current page that they're on right now? And this is actually something we added into the next version of the tool, which I'll show in a few minutes. Division of labor features were also beneficial. People were using the instant messaging for this purpose. So for example, our marathon runners were using it to divide up the task into subtasks. They had a conversation where one said, I'm going to look up information about training, and the other person decided to look up information about routes. So that was a beneficial feature. And people used the recommendations a lot too. They sent a lot of recommendations, but they didn't view all of them. So making that recommendations area more prominent in the UI would be important. In terms of the automatic division of labor, people hardly ever used this. I think maybe 3 or 4 times across the entire study, across all the groups, maybe 3 times. It's not clear why this wasn't used. There are several explanations. It could be that inherently it's just a terrible idea, but I think that actually there are a lot of other factors at play. Again, this is really novel, right? They had a 5-minute tutorial, then they used the tool for 20 minutes. The idea of doing a split search or a multi-source search among a group is really different than the way people currently work. So I suspect actually that as people had more exposure to this type of tool, that might become more incorporated into their habits. But I think actually one of the important things is the social context in which the tool is used. So in our study, all the people were peers, right? They were a set of friends or a set of spouses. And I think that the use of something like the split search or the multi-engine search, where one person is sort of the leader, right? Because they're typing the query and farming out work to everyone else in the group. And so I think that implies either a disparity in skill level, such as a more skilled searcher and a less skilled searcher, or in position, such as a manager and a group of people who report to him, where it would feel more appropriate for you to be sort of sending work to someone else. So I think that because we were using groups of peers and who are all of high search skill levels to test the tool, that can also be a reason why we didn't see much use of this feature. And finally, in terms of persistence, the shared summaries were actually a huge hit. Some people in our study even requested that we send them copies of the summary to keep after the study. So people really are valuing this and treating it as the output of their collaboration and a really valuable artifact that they want to keep. People also like to refer to the summary for awareness information. So while they were working, they would kind of look at the summary to get a quick overview of, well, what's the latest good stuff that my partner has found? And people wanted even richer versions of the summary. So they wanted the ability to be able to manually edit these, for example, to move related items together, or maybe to delete things as they made more progress on their search and realized that some of their earlier comments might not have been accurate. So some of the lessons we learned from this initial evaluation were that SearchTogether did help people collaborate on very realistic web search tasks. And they preferred it to their status quo methods of collaboration. The awareness features were really important. And the automatic division of labor, the jury was still out on that one. So as you saw in the video, the original SearchTogether is a standalone tool like this. But to get realistic uptake in the real world, no one's going to remember to open a standalone tool when they go to search the web. People are used to opening their web browser when they go to search the web. So based on the feedback from our study, we modified some features and added some new features, and we made a browser plugin. So it works in Internet Explorer, and it enables you to collaboratively search with your Microsoft Live Messenger buddies, and you can download it for free and try it out. So I encourage you to try it out, and this is a useful avenue for our research also. because now we're able to gather some more data about long-term use of the tool in order to answer some of these questions, such as whether people will begin to use negative ratings or begin to use the split searching features as they become more used to this concept. So I encourage you to give it a try. And now I want to talk to you a little bit more about some of our other ideas for approaching collaborative search. So SearchTogether addressed the scenario where people were remote when doing their collaboration. So everyone has their own computer, they're in distinct locations. But there are also lots of situations, which you may have been in yourself, where people are co-located. So there's a single computer and a group of people physically gathered around it. And again, they're all working on the same task. So we designed the CoSearch system in order to address this kind of collaborative search scenario. So why are people sharing computers when they search the web? Well, there's a lot of reasons. Sometimes it's because there just aren't enough computers. Even today, in public schools, most schools do not have one computer for every student. Sometimes they have one computer for a classroom or a couple computers for a classroom to share. Also, libraries is another place where people are often sharing computing resources. And of course, when you look outside of the US to the developing world, computing resources are very rare due to economic constraints. And it's very common for large groups of students to work together around a single computer. So to learn a little bit more about some of the situations where people were searching collaboratively around a single computer, we interviewed some people who were in a position to observe a lot of these searches happening. So we interviewed librarians and teachers and researchers on technology for the developing world. Perhaps not surprising to many of you who've also experienced this, they reported that the most common way that people achieve collaborative search with one computer is what we call the backseat driver scenario. So there's the driver who's controlling the mouse and the keyboard, and then there are 1 to n observers who lean over the driver's shoulder and make suggestions. And they commonly make suggestions about query reformulations, so what words the driver should type into the search engine, or about which links they think look most promising to follow in the list of search results or within a particular web page. As you may be aware, if you've ever tried this, there are a lot of limitations to this practice. And the teachers and librarians that we interviewed specified quite a few. So one is that people who are the observers often have difficulty contributing to the activity. The driver is kind of in control, doesn't always listen to the suggestions from other people about what to type in or what to click on. It can be very chaotic, especially if the groups get bigger than just a couple people. There can be a lack of awareness about who in the group suggested what or who's pulling their weight during the activity. For the people who don't have access to the mouse and keyboard, there's not as much opportunity to learn about how to interact with technology. There can be problems with pacing. So for instance, if the person in control of the input devices reads more quickly than the other students in the group, they might scroll down the page faster than other people can keep up with. If the group gets big, it can be hard to refer to things on screen because you can't reach to point for the other person. Obviously, this restricts you to being able to only follow a single path through the information space, since there's only one computer, even though different people in the group might have ideas about what they want to do. And this often results in information loss, both in terms of lost ideas. So different people in the group are all shouting ideas for search terms at the driver, but he can only type in one at a time, and then they might forget what their idea was by the time the driver is ready to give them a turn. And there's information loss because people are often doing these types of collaborative searches in public places, like at libraries to do research for a group project. And they aren't always able to save the state of what they've done in order to maybe revisit it later when they have access to their own machines. So we wanted to address these limitations by designing our tool, CoSearch. So we want to facilitate co-located collaborative search. We want to enable everyone in the group to have some more control and hands-on interaction with what's going on, support division of labor among the group members. But we still want to preserve the nice things about working in a co-located group. Right? There are a lot of really good things about sharing a single computer. It's easy to talk and communicate with the other people in your group. You have shared context and focus and awareness. So we want to make sure that whatever intervention we do isn't going to mess up the good stuff about working together. We also wanted to be able to leverage available devices. Again, because a lot of the places where people share computers, schools, libraries, the developing world, are not overbrimming with resources. So we wanted to be able to use things like extra mice, which are very cheap, only a couple dollars, or devices people already have on their person, such as mobile phones, which are actually surprisingly common even among students and increasingly common in the developing world. So I'm going to show you a video that demonstrates some of the features of CoSearch, and then afterwards, again, I'll go through the features in a little bit more detail and explain them. Let's see.
People often gather around a single computer to find information. These shared resource searches often occur in venues such as classrooms and libraries, because computers there are often not plentiful enough for each group member to have his own. Sharing computing resources can be frustrating. One group member often dominates the device usage, limiting the ability of others to contribute to and gain value from the shared task. In this video, we present CoSearch, a system that utilizes abundant resources such as mobile phones and extra mice to facilitate co-located collaborative web search. CoSearch aims to reduce the frustrations of co-located searching, while preserving the benefits of gathering around a shared display, such as high levels of communication and awareness among group members. The following scenario illustrates the key features of CoSearch. Susan, Michael, and Emily are students who have just been assigned a class project on the causes and effects of global warming. After school, they gather around a CoSearch-enabled public computer to search the web for relevant information. Susan takes a seat in front of the computer and starts CoSearch PC, while Michael and Emily pull up chairs around Susan and pull out their mobile phones. CoSearch PC detects Michael and Emily's phones over Bluetooth, and they are able to join the current session. CoSearch Mobile starts on their respective phones and automatically sends their IDs to the PC, which are then color-coded and displayed in CoSearch PC. Susan also enters her name into a color-coded field in CoSearch PC. Each person's ID color matches the color of the individual cursor that he or she can control via the mouse or phone. Susan begins by typing global warming into the search box. CoSearch PC records that Susan issued the search by displaying the search terms in the query queue highlighted in Susan's color. The search results appear, and Emily tells Susan to open up the first result, the Wikipedia article on global warming. Susan clicks on the link and a new color-coded tab is opened in the page queue. Susan, Michael, and Emily all start reading the article on the PC. Susan starts scrolling down the page. Michael, however, is still reading the first few paragraphs, and so he uses his phone's joystick to move the cursor to the current page's tab and clicks on it. The article is then automatically opened in his phone's web browser so that he can read it at his own pace. In the Wikipedia article, Emily has read that one of the most likely causes of global warming is the increase in greenhouse gas emissions. She thinks this would be a good query to search for, so she types a greenhouse effect into her phone and sends the text to CoSearch PC so that she doesn't forget about it. The query is coded in Emily's color and added to the query queue so that the group knows Emily wants to try this search next. Since she has finished reading the Wikipedia article faster than the others, Emily looks back at the list of global warming search results, which are still visible in CoSearch's results pane. She sees that the Sierra Club has a site devoted to global warming, and uses her phone's joystick to move her cursor to the Sierra Club link. She clicks on it and the web page gets loaded into her CoSearch mobile. The web page is also opened in a new tab coded with Emily's color in CoSearch PC's page queue so that the group knows that Emily is looking at this new web page. Reading the page in her phone's browser, Emily follows a link about how vehicles impact global warming. She wants to share this page with the group, so she sends it from her phone back to CoSearch PC, where it appears as another item in the page queue. Emily tells the group that she thinks the site that she found might have useful statistics for their report. Susan uses the mouse to click on the page's tab, and the group looks at the page together on CoSearch PC. Emily and Michael agree that the site is useful, so Susan adds a note to the page so that the group remembers to use the page's statistics for their project. They decide that it might be interesting to discuss the impact of different modes of transportation on global warming, so they save the page. CoSearch PC records the page's title and URL in the search summary area. Noticing Emily's greenhouse effect query in the query queue, Susan clicks on it, executing the search, and the group examines this new set of results. They continue using CoSearch and find several promising web pages that they could reference in their class project. After their hour limit on the public computer is finished, Michael and Emily click the Get Summaries option on their phones, which gets the summaries from the CoSearch PC over Bluetooth and stores them on their respective phones, so that the group members can individually review the information they found when they get home.
All right. Oh, that's not what I wanted it to do. Sorry. Slideshow from current slide. There we go. So as you saw, CoSearch consists of two main portions. A special browser designed for collaboration that runs on the shared computer. And then it can support input in a couple ways. In the video, we showed operation with cell phones, but we also support operation through attaching multiple mice to the computer for scenarios perhaps where people can't afford to have their own cell phones or don't have their own cell phones. So in this case, the multiple mice can control the multiple cursors on the screen. You don't get all the functionality. So for instance, you don't get the ability for everyone to type queries from their cell phones in this scenario. One of the important features was the page queue. So again, you saw this used color coding to show who in the group was opening a page. They're queued up in the background, so they don't change the current focus of the group's attention, but it's a way for the group members to show, this is what I want to look at next. So I want us as a group to remember that when we're done with what we're doing now, we should remember to look at this interesting thing next. This is another way, too, if different members of the group think that a different search result is what the group can look at, they can open them all up in the background in this queue so that they get to explore all the different paths. With the mobile phones, you can also do things like download the list of current search results onto your phone. So if you want to look at a different result than what the group was looking at right now, so this can begin to enable things like the group following a few different strategies at the same time in order to divide and conquer if they want to. And we use the idea of the query queue, again, to sort of externalize the group's memory. So you type a query on your phone the same way you would type a text message, and it gets queued up. Again, so the current search results that are being shown don't change until someone selects an item to take it off the queue and make it the current focus of the group's attention. But it's a way for the group to remember ideas they have for things to try next. And again, everything's color-coded, so you can get a sense for who in the group is participating and who's contributing what. And that also can be interesting if you're considering using this in an educational setting where teachers might be interested in having a way to have some sort of records associated with a group's process of doing research for their report so that they can assign credit appropriately or give help, perhaps an encouragement to students who they can see now aren't participating as much. So we wanted to do an evaluation of CoSearch in order to learn how well CoSearch is enabling distributed control and division of labor, and to make sure that we're still preserving the benefits of group communication and awareness that you get from a shared setting. So I want to save some time here, so I'm just going to give a super quick overview, but the big summary is that we found that CoSearch did preserve the positive aspects of group communication while helping reduce some of the limits of the backseat driver approach. So people using CoSearch were less frustrated than when they were sharing a computer, and there was more division of labor among the group. So people who hadn't been participating as much, who had been observers, became more active participants in a search. So for example, some of the participants in our evaluation had positive comments about CoSearch, like, I could submit search topics without having to yell at the person who was at the computer. One participant said she felt she was able to have more of a say in what was going on the screen. And one group member was really happy that everyone in the group could input ideas on how to find the answers, so the group as a whole had more ideas that were generated about how to attack their problem. Again, if you have more questions about the details of our evaluation of CoSearch, I'd be glad to talk with you afterwards about them. But in summary, we designed CoSearch particularly to address some of the problems with the status quo of shared computer searching. So to address the difficulties that people who are observers might have in contributing, we provide cursors for every member of the group. We provide the ability to send a query from your phone. We provide the page queue so that everyone in the group can specify links they want the group to open. To address the pacing problems, we enable people to view a web page on their mobile phone so that they can read it at a different pace. To address the difficulties of referring to objects on screen if you're seated a little bit further away, we provide the individual cursors that you can control with your mouse or with your phone's joystick so that you can point to objects on screen. By enabling people to view web pages in their mobile phones, we now can support strategies that might have people looking at several different paths at the same time. By providing everyone in the group with either a mouse or phone, we enable people to get more involved in hands-on interaction with the technology. And by providing the ability for the group to associate notes with web pages and then to export those summaries either through email or through downloading them directly onto their phones, we're trying to address the problem of information loss when groups are collaborating in a public place. So now everyone can take all the information that the group has found and refer to it themselves after they've disbanded. So in summary, collaborative web search, it supports a real need that isn't being addressed by today's search tools. And in particular, we're thinking about all the different scenarios in which collaboration occurs. We're thinking about remote collaboration when everyone has their own computer. And for that, we designed SearchTogether. And we're also thinking about co-located collaboration when people are together in one place. And for that, we designed CoSearch. And so I encourage you to go online and try our tools. And right now, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you guys might have. Thanks. Yeah?
Is there any thought of making the plugin not just for IE, but maybe for Firefox too? That way it'd be more...
That's a fantastic question.
You know, it would still have the Microsoft tags and stuff on it, but it might have a wider audience.
Yes, that is a good point. Not everyone uses Internet Explorer. And I agree that in general, it would be wonderful to expand the audience of these tools. But currently, we're only offering an Internet Explorer version. Yeah?
Can you elaborate on the integration with IM and the possibility of integrating with, for example, email? What actually is the integration? And you made one comment, but can you elaborate on why it's better?
So the integration of the current SearchTogether tool with instant messaging is that it connects to your, grabs your contacts list from, if you use Live Messenger or Microsoft MSN Messenger, we extract your contacts list for you automatically, and so you can invite people from your contacts list to join you in the shared search. So that's the current extent of the integration with IM. It's just a way for getting your contacts. And so you can imagine that those contacts could be imported in theory from other places, like from your email address book or from some other non-Microsoft-based messaging program. Again, this is sort of our initial prototype. It's not a final product or anything like that. It's just a research prototype that's kind of out there for us to gather a little bit more data and learn more about how people react to this idea. So right now, we're only using Live Messenger contacts as part of the tool. Now, I think another question about the integration with IM is kind of where this tool goes. So right now, you saw it's a browser plugin. But again, you can imagine that sometimes the browser is where you go to start a search, but for a collaborative search, maybe within the IM client itself is where you start your search because you're having a chat conversation with your friend, and that helps you realize your shared need. And so you would want to be able to maybe launch a collaborative search from within your IM client itself. And right now, that's not a capability we offer. But again, I think that that's something that should be offered. Yeah?
In SearchTogether, I was sort of surprised that the divide and conquer facilities, search sort of didn't get more traction. Maybe a hypothesis might be that, well, it's really going back to the IM, use of IM, that divide and conquer was happening, but it was happening at a higher level in terms of sort of potentially that search terminology. And maybe a collateral question is, do you see, how important do you see the development of kind of ad hoc vocabulary and even ad hoc taxonomy for narrowing, for fracturing the notion of diabetes, for instance? And having a group understanding and then doing divide and conquer at the topical, the subtopical level, and not worrying about the tactical.
Yes, the question is about the split searching and sort of why maybe it wasn't that popular. And the suggestion is that, right now we're just sort of doing this automatic dividing things up sort of randomly among groups, but that maybe the way people really want to divide things, as we saw in the IM messages, is more by particular subtopics, for example. And that's not something that our automatic facility supports, and maybe it should. And so I think that's a good point. And in fact, one of the things that we've been working on is trying to enhance that automatic division of labor, perhaps to get a little closer to that idea. So one of the things we're working on is what we call smart splitting. So this is taking advantage of the concept of personalized search. So basically, real quickie, the concept of personalized search, if you're not familiar with it, is that right now if you type in a search for, let's say, Michael Jordan, right? Like everyone in the world gets the same set of search results for Michael Jordan, no matter who you are when you typed it in. But Michael Jordan's a famous athlete, but Michael Jordan is also, I believe, a professor of mathematics at Berkeley, right? And since I'm a nerd, that's probably the Michael Jordan I'm more interested in. So maybe when I search for Michael Jordan, that should come up first. And how does the computer know to make that come up first? Well, it can know by doing a bunch of things, by looking maybe at my past query history, by looking at my past browser history or bookmarks, maybe even by examining the contents of the items on my computer and matching the vocabulary in them to the vocabulary in the search results and producing a customized ranking for me. And so you can imagine then extending techniques like that to do what we call the smart splitting, which is, for instance, let's say I'm searching with my uncle, who's a medical doctor, and we're searching about new treatments for my asthma. And I'm not a medical doctor, I'm the fake kind of doctor. So you can imagine that when we do the splitting, what we might want to happen is that the more technical medical articles from medical journals and things about asthma would get sent to my uncle, and the more general purpose things, like the Wikipedia article on asthma, might get sent to me. And so we can actually do that with the smart splitting by taking into account things like the vocabulary that's already in documents on my uncle's computer versus my computer to see that technical medical terms more frequently occur on his computer, so we can give those things to him. So I imagine that some enhancements like that make this automatic division of labor more intelligent might actually increase uptake of that tool. Yeah?
Hey Merrie, so both of the projects you showed here, both SearchTogether and CoSearch, treat the PC as the primary display and as the recipient of all final search results. Can you maybe speculate about turning that around and taking the mobile phone as where the search results go, and maybe calling upon the help of people who are synchronously remotely online to help you with a mobile search while you're out running around in that area?
Yeah, so the question is about maybe other devices and form factors and how collaborative search fits in there. So in the current prototypes, the PC is still kind of the center of the universe. And obviously thinking about how to do this in a mobile scenario, purely mobile scenario, for instance, could be very rich. Or even if you still have the PC, like Bjorn was suggesting, but that's not the central display for the results. So you can imagine maybe even just a variation on CoSearch where the search result list is shown on the main PC, and people can do the division of labor automatically themselves, maybe by using their phones to grab individual search results from that list and partition them out to the group, so everyone's looking at a subset on their own computer. So that could be one way that people interact in the future. I think also thinking about how this extends to large display devices is really interesting. So one place where people do collaborative search sometimes now is in meetings, right? So you'll be in a meeting, sitting around a big conference table, and someone in the meeting will talk about, oh, I think I remember this talk I heard once about collaborative web search. It's really relevant to our meeting. Who did that? And then everyone will be like, all looking away on their laptops, trying to figure it out, and then they're all distracted and not paying attention to the meeting anymore. So again, thinking about a way in enhanced meeting rooms that you could work together as a group to do collaborative search by taking advantage of maybe large displays on the wall or large interactive tabletops to let group members work together to do a collaborative search, I think is an interesting area for future work. Yeah, Nima.
Hi. So I know you didn't have a lot of time to talk about the evaluation of CoSearch, but I was curious, out of all the limitations of the existing kind of crowding around a computer and the way that you address them, which of those gave you the biggest bang for your buck? Like which features helped the system the most, if you had to rank order them?
Yeah, so the question was about, in our evaluation of CoSearch, which I elided in this talk, which features turned out to be most beneficial. And there's a two-part answer to that, I'd say. For people who knew how to text message, so basically for younger people, kind of under 25, being able to send queries from the phone to the computer was huge. They loved this, they did it a lot, it was a great way for them to be active. For people who didn't have experience sending text messages, they were very slow at typing things on the phone, and so they actually found that they liked the idea and concept, but it took them so long that they weren't able to enter many queries. And so for that group of people, it was more the ability to add links to the page queue that they really liked, to sort of specify what they wanted the group to be able to look at next. And so again, I think the influence of text messaging skill on the success of CoSearch is important to consider. I think since it's particularly aimed at like educational scenarios with a younger audience, that's okay because kids these days are great at the text messaging. But it might not be as appropriate, for example, in libraries, which often have an audience, for instance, of senior citizens that come to use the resources in the library. A text messaging interface there is not as appropriate. Yeah.
So you mentioned using the PC and the hard drive to figure out a vocabulary to help personalize the search. Is that something that's available now, or is it something that's...
Oh, so the question was about the smart splitting feature that I mentioned earlier. And the current prototype that you can download online of SearchTogether doesn't use the smart splitting feature. That's just something that we're kind of working on in the lab. But if you just want personalized search for yourself, not for a collaborative purpose. I believe actually if you go to Microsoft Research's homepage, there are some prototypes of the personalized search tool that you can install on your own computer. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Maybe more speculative. What might be the effect of collaborative tools like this on say, shifting monetization models? For instance, in all of your experiments, how many of those sponsored, how many of the Google AdWords got clicked on? Was it less or more?
Right, so the question is about the impact of the sort of the economic impacts of collaborative search tools. And I think actually there are a lot of opportunities from a search engine company's perspective that these offer. So first of all, you have the concept now that people are grouping a set of individual queries all together under a topic, right? And that there's a group of people and they've identified this is a topic. And so you know that this whole set of queries that they've issued are all about, say, the topic of diabetes. And so, for example, that can even just help with things like automatic query suggestions that search engines try to give to searchers now. So you could do better automatic query suggestions by mining this set of queries that now you explicitly know are all related to the same topic. You can have better targeted advertising, again, because you have more data to give you a better sense for, if they just did a search for Michael Jordan, maybe you don't know if they're interested in the mathematician or the basketball store, but if you can see that they did a search for Michael Jordan and their collaborator did a search for basketball, now you know they're definitely interested in the sports star, so you can target sports advertising to people. Also, because people are now working in a group, they're incented to give feedback on the search results themselves, like giving a thumbs up to things they think are relevant, because that helps other members of their group, but that also helps the search engine. It helps the search engine to know which results people thought were more relevant, and they're giving you that data for free. So I think in terms of improving search relevance and improving the quality of advertising, collaborative search tools certainly have a lot of potential. Okay, well, thank you, and feel free to come talk to me afterwards if you have more questions.
For more, please visit us at stanford.edu.